Welcome to Heart Echo Channel, where quiet moments echo the deepest emotions. The penthouse sat high above Manhattan, wrapped in glass, steel, and a profound silence. Everything inside it was perfect, almost too perfect. Cold marble floors, clean, minimalist lines, and walls that reflected the glittering city, but revealed nothing of the man who lived inside. Stephen Langston lived there, alone, at just 34. He was a millionaire CEO, a man admired and feared in equal measure. He was brilliant, relentlessly focused, and completely untouchable. He was the kind of man who measured his entire life in results and deadlines, not in feelings or moments. He didn't slow down. He certainly didn't look back, and he definitely didn't notice the quiet, human details of his own life, especially the people who moved through it. Kathy worked in his penthouse 3 mornings a week. She was 28, soft-spoken, incredibly efficient, and always careful not to take up too much space. Her blonde hair was always tied back neatly. Her clothes were modest, clean, but just slightly worn at the edges. She was practically invisible by design. Sometimes, when her childcare arrangements fell through, she had to bring her daughter Emmy. She was just 3 years old, a small, polite, and unusually careful child, as if she already understood, even at her young age, that the world wasn't really built for children like her. Stephen rarely acknowledged either of them. A brief nod, a clipped morning, then he would vanish into his office, a sterile sanctuary where emotions didn't exist. That morning felt exactly like every other morning. Kathy was quietly polishing the enormous windows that overlooked the city. Emmy sat cross-legged on an expensive rug, playing with a small wooden doll. The paint was chipped, and one of its arms was slightly loose. But the way Emmy held it, you'd think it was the most priceless treasure in the world. Then, a sound broke the sterile silence. It wasn't a crash. It wasn't a scream. It was just a tiny voice, trembling with an emotion far too heavy for a child to carry. "I'm sorry you're broken. I'll still love you." Stephen froze in his office chair. He looked up from his screen. That sound, it didn't belong in his world. It was an anomaly in his perfectly curated environment. He stood up and stepped out of his office. Kathy was in the kitchen, her back to him. Emmy was curled up on the rug. The wooden doll lay broken across her lap, one arm now dangling completely free. She wasn't crying loudly, just small, quiet sniffs, like she was trying her best not to bother anyone. Stephen should have turned back. This wasn't his concern. It wasn't on his agenda. But something stopped him. An old memory rose up, unwanted and uninvited. A broken plastic fire truck from his childhood, held together with yellowed, old tape. His mother's tired hands. Her whispered apologies for all the things she couldn't fix. He found himself moving, crouching beside Emmy. "Is that your favorite?" he asked, his voice softer than he'd heard it in years. She just nodded, her eyes wide. Stephen picked up the broken doll carefully, treating it like it mattered. "Let's fix her," he said. Emmy blinked, and then a small, hopeful smile bloomed on her face. From a drawer that hadn't been opened in ages, Stephen pulled out a small metal box. Inside were tools from another life: glue, sandpaper, string, tools from a time before expensive suits and corporate power. He worked slowly, with the careful focus he usually reserved for multi-million-dollar deals, as if he was fixing something fragile inside himself. "Where did she come from?" he asked gently. "She was Daddy's last gift," Emmy whispered, "before he went to heaven." Stephen's hands paused for just a second. Then, he continued his work. When the doll's arm was secure and whole again, Emmy pulled out a faded pink heart sticker from her pocket. "Can we put this on her?" she asked. "So she knows she's still loved." For a moment, Stephen couldn't speak. He just nodded, and with a surprisingly steady hand, he pressed the heart sticker gently into place over the doll's chest. "She's perfect now," he said softly, maybe even stronger. Without a word, Emmy climbed into his lap and wrapped her small arms around his neck. "Thank you, Mr. Stephen. You're a toy doctor." Behind them, Kathy stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. Tears filled her eyes before she even realized it. The penthouse suddenly felt different, warmer, less empty. The next morning, Stephen emerged from his room without his usual suit. He was just wearing a simple sweater. When Emmy arrived, he knelt down again to her level. Kathy panicked. "I'm so sorry. She won't bother you. She already helped me," Stephen said, his voice gentle and genuine. Later that day, Emmy ran to her mother, holding a cookie wrapped in a gold ribbon. A small note was attached. It read, "For the best toy doctor assistant in town." Kathy's heart pounded in her chest. Hope felt like such a dangerous thing. That afternoon, after they had left, Stephen found a drawing Emmy had left behind on his desk. It showed three stick figures sitting at a dinner table. Underneath, in a child's scrawl, were the words, "This is what happy looks like." Something inside him, something long frozen, cracked. He invited Kathy to work an extra day each week. Just on Thursdays, no cleaning, no work. They just talked, they laughed, they found themselves looking at each other for longer than was strictly necessary. Until the fear returned. Stephen pulled away. The silence and the distance came rushing back into the penthouse. Feeling the shift, Kathy left a note, politely asking to be removed from the Thursday schedule. That night, Emmy asked her mom quietly, "Did I break Mr. Stephen?" "No, baby," Kathy whispered, her own heart aching. Sometimes grown-ups break themselves. Emmy drew one more picture. It showed her and her mom standing outside a small, cozy-looking house. In the corner, she wrote, "You can come here. We don't have much, but we have hugs." Stephen received it that night, and for the first time in his life, he chose something completely unfamiliar. He chose courage. He showed up at their door. A year later, imagine a small house, glowing with Christmas lights. The sound of laughter spills out into the cold night air. Inside, on a wall, a framed drawing of three stick figures at a table. On a woman's hand, a simple ring, engraved with the words, "Fixed by love." Three people who didn't just find each other, but chose each other. If this story touched your heart, give it a HYPE and subscribe to Heart Echo channel, because sometimes, broken things don't need replacing, they just need a little love to be made whole again. Thanks for watching.